Hey folks, this is Jake Davis bringing you a retro review today. And my subject is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining from 1980. And, based on the novel by Stephen King starring Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. I am probably going to get some dislikes, get some hate for this retro review. So I'm just not going to hold back. I'm going to tell you my honest opinions because I'm not a fan of this film. The story starts with the interview. Jack Nicholson playing Jack Torrance. Jack Torrance is a former teacher and a writer and a recovering alcoholic. And he's taking this job at the Overlook Hotel as a caretaker for the winter between November and April so he can work on his book and basically stay out of trouble. He gets a job, but he finds out that the Overlook has the previous caretaker murdered his wife, or a previous caretaker murdered his wife and daughters. And the reason Jack is on the wagon right now is because 5 months back he dislocated his son's shoulder. His son Danny. Danny is a troubled, quiet boy who talks to Tony, the boy in his mouse. And his wife, Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, is just trying to keep it together and also doing some weird pseudo-southern accent. So it's closing day at the Overlook Hotel and everybody's heading out. And while everybody's leaving and wrapping up their work for the season, they meet the cook, Dick Halloran, who, he's an old black man. He's played by Scatman Crothers, but this kind of leads to this great Key and Peele sketch about, the mystical, magical black people in Stephen King books. I mean, I can only think of three of them, but three of them is enough to make that joke funny. But yeah, so Dick Halloran, he can talk to Danny in his head, and they have the Shining. That's what he calls it, the Shine. This almost psychic ability. You can talk to each other, but you can also see things other people can't see, like the dead and stuff. Now, The Shining is, of course, the name of the movie, but it kind of has nothing to do with this film, other than just, to explain why the kid's weird. I'll get into other things in a little bit. Just let me run through this terrible movie. So now they're taking care of the place. Jack's not really doing any writing, and he's being really nasty. And to be fair, he's kind of been a dick from go. Jack Torrance is not really a likable person, at least not in the film. He's indifferent to his son. He's short-tempered with his wife. Took the job to apparently do some writing, but he's literally just, fucking pretending he's Steve McQueen bouncing a fucking tennis ball off the walls. Meanwhile, Wendy and Danny are actually making the most of their time, and they're enjoying the weather. They're, spreading out, looking at this huge, beautiful, lavish hotel. And I guess I should go ahead and point out right here, because I thought of it, the brilliant art direction of this movie. Probably the best thing about this movie, in my opinion, is its art direction. Somehow, it's very clean, and it's very bleak, and it looks like a hotel, but at the same time feels like a hospital. The stark, unsettling, bright colors in the film, it would definitely bring its own tone and its own vibe, and create this a sense of unease and tension. So yeah, the art direction in this, yeah, no doubt, and the music too, because it's not an original score; it's all pre-recorded music. That's something Kubrick really liked to do. Those are really my favorite things about the film: the look and the sound. Yeah, I mean, look, photography and sound design too. I should point out. I'm not a big fan of I hate all the fades in and out. So many fading transition. Oh my god. It was rough. I hate that. I hate that effect, and it's in this movie like 90 fucking times. So after everybody clears out, Jack's not doing his work, and Danny starts to see the creepy things. First, he's seeing the very famous, the two twin girls, the Grady Girls. Come play with us, Danny. Um, uh, I have a signed autograph from them. So it came in from like a loot crate thing, So several thousand people got a copy of the same fucking autograph. But so I had it around here somewhere. My wife held on because she's a bigger fan of this movie than I am. I'm not a fan of this movie. Oh, let me. I can tell you why I don't like it. So, shortly after he meets the girls, Danny finally goes into room 237, which he could tell Halloran was scared of. He didn't want to go, he wanted to admit to it, but he clearly was. So Danny goes in there, and we don't see him go in there. We get, in my opinion, about 45 minutes into the movie, the first good scene. Where Jax has a horrible nightmare, and Wendy comes running to his aid, and he tells me that he dreamed that he murdered her and Danny, and he's just like truly, severely shook by this dream, because it wasn't a dream, it was a vision of the future. And while she's trying to comfort him, Danny comes wandering into the room, like in shock, with like bruises on his neck, stuck in on his thumb, and Wendy's in. I kind of love this transition, Shelley Duvall. The best piece of acting in the whole movie she does, almost. She's. Shelley Duvall is just not a good actress. That doesn't mean Kubrick didn't get some good stuff out of her in occasional moments in this film. But I love her take. She's taking care of her husband. She's being supportive and being his rock and shoulder, and literally picking him up off the ground. Then she sees her hurt baby and just flips right around. You motherfucker! What did you do to my boy? I love that bit. It just. It's one of many, many parts of the movie. It's really a great way it's done, but I think it's unintentionally funny. Maybe it's supposed to be funny, but I'm not sure Stanley Kubrick had a sense of humor. I saw 2001. I don't want to shit on Kubrick, because I like Kubrick. I really do like Stanley Kubrick, but I think there's definitely a cult of personality around him. The director has no clothes. Anyhow, around this time, Jack's getting really resentful, pissed off at Wendy, pissed off at Danny, and now he starts to see the ghosts. We're not supposed to know they're ghosts yet. We're supposed to just think Jax has visions, but they're ghosts. Talks to Lloyd, the bartender, and eventually meets Grady, who spills some drinks on his clothes, and pretty cool scene in the movie, to be fair. He goes, my daughter tried to burn the hotel down, and I corrected her. My wife tried to stop me, and then I corrected her too. It was a cool scene. But Jack Nicholson, he just kind of, I don't know. There's just a lot of mugging in this movie. And it's made far clear. There's no liquor, there's no booze, so Jack's just acting crazy when in the novel, Jack's somehow getting a hold of alcohol that's not really there and is getting really fucking lit during all this shit. So, the storm's getting worse. Wendy's getting scared, and she decides she's gonna get Danny the hell out of there before the weather gets too bad. And if Jack doesn't want to go, then Jack doesn't have to go. So she goes to let him know, and she comes across his work. And this is Kubrick's best inclusion into the film. Now, it's completely unfaithful and kind of shits on the novel, but it's a really cool scene when she goes through what Jack is reading, and page and page and page and page of all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. And since this is a Kubrick film, don't think for 1 second that just the pages you see on screen are the ones they had. He had some poor bastards type up 800 pages of the same fucking sentence, and he did. Anyhow, so she's like freaking out. Jack confronts her. The whole thing, just that this is my responsibility. I was trusted to take care of this hotel, which is really the first time he's talking about this in the whole fucking film, even though he's done no actual caretaking in the whole movie. And he has actually, I mean, the book was doing work. He was taking care of the place, and this was an obsession, you know, this to be reliable, this desperation. This is my last job. I'll get to that. It's like the fifth time I've said that. Anyhow, and Wendy has to hit him, knock him out. Probably the most famous scene in the movie. Honey, Wendy, darling, light of my life. Yeah, I don't want to go through the whole thing. Because I don't feel like doing my Nicholson impression right now. Because I'm pissed. I don't like this movie. I had to fucking sit through this 9-hour piece of shit. Anyhow. She whacks his ass out with a fucking baseball bat, locks him in the fucking fridge. She's gonna take Danny and leave, but he says, haha, no, I fucked up the radio, fucked up the snowcat. You ain't going nowhere, baby doll. And they don't know Halloran's on the way. Jack knows Halloran's on the way. Danny knows Halloran's on the way, but Wendy doesn't. And yeah, I should point that. Yeah, Danny, you know, calls to him. Well, no, he doesn't in this. No, that's right. Halloran just has a vision in Miami. And when I was watching this earlier with my dad was actually living in Miami at the time this movie came out, and he just said the reporter, he's like, hey, I remember that the guy, the weatherman and the reporter in that scene, when Halloran's in Miami. Anyhow, so Halloran's on his way, and the ghosts let Jack out. I guess this is when it's confirmed. The movie confirms that it's ghosts. I don't know I just don't understand the point of trying to build it up. It's just Kubrick being Kubrick. Anyhow, so now it's the last 30 minutes of the movie, which means the good part of the film. Everything else in this film, here on out, whether it be faithful to the book, actually, from the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, from that part to the rest of the movie, faithful or not, is pretty damn good. I gotta admit, it's really good stuff there. Jack finally gets to be Jack. You know, even though I think it's a lot of mugging, it's a lot of unintentional comedy. I know it's one of Nicholson's most iconic performances, but I just do not think he's good in this movie. I really don't. I think he's all wrong, and I think his interpretation is just kind of... That's the whole thing. This isn't really an adaptation of King's book. It's an interpretation. Anyhow, so Jack got an axe, goes right after Wendy, and, you know, Danny's written red drum, which is what Tony in his mouth always keeps saying. Is written red drum on the door. And by the way, in the book, Tony is actually some kind of... is like a physical being, like an older boy that talks to him. And I guess is like the older version of Danny, or the version of what Danny could be if they get the fuck out of the Overlook. It's just a bite in his mouth, and this which was so stupid. And I don't like this. Danny Torrance isn't even a character in this movie. He's just this quiet, creepy little kid, and he was a normal kid in the book, you know. And so he writes red rum finally, which has been said in the whole film. Red rum. Sound like Mars Attacks there. He writes it on the door, and Wendy sees it in the reflection, and it says murder backwards. Ooh. And right at this time, boom. Jack is on outside their apartment door with a fucking axe, chopping down the goddamn front door. She takes Danny, she puts him out a window in the bathroom, locks herself in the window, and Jack's coming in there. The famous scene, here's Johnny. You know, that part. So I'm gonna leave it there too. So he goes. So around this time, Halloran shows up, and Jack kills him right the fuck away, and. Like, because they're connected to The Shining, Danny, like, almost feels it and screams. Jack can hear where he is and chases him out into the snow. And while Wendy's looking for Jack and Danny, she keeps running into all the ghosts and seeing all kinds of crazy shit. Your typical ghost house segment where the character runs around seeing creepy shit. They do it all the time. So, Jack chases Danny out into the maze. This huge, giant maze that, I guess I should have mentioned earlier. That Danny and his mom have already been through, and all the way got to there in back, so it's safe to assume Danny might know the way. You know, kid might have a good memory, you never know. Despite him being a total weirdo. So Jack chases him in there, and Danny leads Jack away by backpedaling his footprints, covering up tracks, hiding, letting Jack get way lost. Comes back to his mom. I thought it was really silly. He falls out of the, comes out of the maze just when Wendy's coming out there looking around. She's got this knife, and this fucking knife. She pulls the knife in the kitchen. That's not a kitchen knife. You know, I'm a cook by trade, and that is not a fucking kitchen knife. It's more like a little micro machete. I mean, there's the fucking blade's so narrow at the bottom towards the handle. That's not a kitchen knife. Anyhow, Danny comes out of the fucking maze, and she's standing up there by the snowcat, and she sees him, and she throws the knife down. She doesn't know if Jack's right around the corner with the fucking axe. She just throws the knife down. So she gets Danny, they get in the snowcat, and they get the fuck out of there. Jack Torrance is lost in the maze. The cut to the next morning, him froze like a fucking popsicle, dead as a doornail. The last shot of the movie, they cut into all the photos in Jack's writing room, and you see one of the photos from like 1921, and he's in there because he's always been the caretaker. Now, I already said, you know, just there's a lot to nitpick here. Now, I just think Nicholson. First off, I love Jack Nicholson. He's one of my favorite actors of all time, but I do not think he's good in this in any way. I think I think the writing is bland. And I think the acting is bad from everybody. But Nicholson just comes to just be mugging it and like almost walking through the fucking movie. I don't think he's good in this. I know people are going to hate me for this, but I just there's big disappointment for me. And I'm not going to say, I'll get to that. And Danny, like I said, Danny was a real character and a real kid, a likable kid who had in-jokes with his parents and had a relationship with his father. And just none of that's there. There's no heart. There's no humanity. There's no character. There's no... They took all the guts out of The Shining. And I saw this film years before I read the book. I saw this movie for the first time probably when I was maybe 10 years old. And I read the book when I was maybe 18 or 19. And it's the best book I've ever read. But I didn't have this preset bias from reading the book in the first place. I didn't like the movie ever. I thought it was always boring and always dull, and always I've loved Jack Nicholson. And Shelley Duvall, as far as differences from the book, I mean, other than Wendy's supposed to be a knockout, they're pretty faithful to Wendy. Of the three characters, she's the most faithful, the most accurate to what she was in the novel. Halloran, I mean, he's the same. We'll just move on. Scatman Crothers. Kubrick apparently did... Like, every scene this poor bastard was in, he's known for doing just ridiculous lengths of tape. But, like, 80-plus takes, supposedly, for Scatman Crothers in multiple scenes. I mean, you know, I understand the diligence. I understand the craft. You want to get as much as you possibly can. You want to play with something. Sure. But if you got it in 4 takes, and you know you got it in 4 takes, you know, when does it become just a waste of resources, a waste of time, a waste of patience from your actor? You know, I don't know. I just think it was certainly wasteful and maybe even a little cruel to put those actors through so many takes. So, and then there's the book, Jack's writing. Now, I love the Jack, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That's a great scene. But in the novel, he's writing a play, a 5-part tragedy, about a teacher who hates a student, is jealous of him, eventually murders him. And we go into great fucking detail about Jack Torrance's work and his life and the desperation. You know, this isn't just a job he's taking because he wants some seclusion to write a novel. He's, or because he's magically drawn to the hotel because he's always been there. It's, you know, this is desperate. You know, he can't get another job. He's a severe alcoholic who lost his last job for fucking beating the shit out of one of his students. This man's at his wit's end. And, you know, his wife's staying there with him. You know, she's hanging in there. One more shot, one more time. This is all they have. That's why the overlooked job is so important to Torrance. And in the novel, when he's kind of realizes his play is going to be kind of hackney, he starts working on like a Truman Capote type story about the history and the macabre of the Overlook, which we also don't get any of in the film. You know, we don't know the story of the woman behind 237, which was a different number in the book. But you know, I don't blame that shit. You know, directors can play. You know, he wanted to throw a reference for something else. Directors do shit like that all the time. And then there's that. You know, Kubrick did his own thing with The Shining, and I understand a lot of people love it, but it was not well regarded when it first came out. And I've never really been a fan. And after rewatching it today, it was a chore to get through. I bought it last night at Walmart for like $4. And I even made a crack. Hey, you know, it's $1 per hour of film. So what a good deal. But no, it's say you have a cow. You have a whole cow, and here's the potential of this cow. You could have steak, you could have veal, filet mignon, all this wonderful, delicious stuff, and all you got is the ground beef, and not just any ground beef, but like, you know, Burger King ground beef. It's awful. I didn't like this movie, and I know I am in a mass minority with this, but I can't call it a disappointment, because, you know, it's beloved, it's acclaimed, it was a flop, but, you know, now it's considered a great movie, and there's a sequel to it that just came out this last weekend, which was way better than this, and I can't say it's a disappointment. I certainly don't consider it a classic. I can't say it's an embarrassment, and I wouldn't consider it a classic, but I do consider it a disappointment. And I also consider it just, you know, it's ground beef. Anyhow, leave your dislike below. I'm Jake Davis, and I'll catch you on the fly.